Welcome to the Momship Mastery Podcast, the ultimate destination for moms seeking balance, connection, and growth in their journey through motherhood. I'm your host, master's level therapist and life coach, Andrea Baker. Here at the Momship Mastery, we believe that motherhood is a purposeful journey filled with discoveries, challenges, and countless opportunities for growth. Our mission is to provide you incredible moms with the wisdom, inspiration, and tools to flourish as you nurture your relationship with yourself and those around you. Each week, we will dive into transformative conversations, therapeutic insights, and practical tips to empower you to thrive as a mom while still maintaining your unique identity. From self-care strategies to relationship building, from spiritual growth to parenting insights, I've got you covered. So if you're ready to embark on this journey with us, hit that subscribe button and let's explore the world of motherhood, relationships, and growth together. Remember, you're not alone on this journey, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Welcome to this week's episode. I hope that you're doing well today. I hope that you listened to last week's episode where we talked about finding grace in the messiness of motherhood. This week is going to build on to that one, okay? So get ready, and I hope that this is helpful for you today, okay? All right, so this week we're going to build on last week's episode, and we're going to talk about the journey of self-discovery and how to unlearn some things. We talked about last week giving ourselves grace and really digging into who we want to become and how we want to show up and all these things. So this week we're going to talk about that journey. And for me, really, the first step of that journey was unlearning some things before I learned new things. Why is this important? It's important for us to unlearn things because we're teaching things to our children. Right? So if we don't unlearn the lessons that don't serve us, then we accidentally or inadvertently end up teaching them to our children. And something that really was heavy on me this week was like, what happens to our children and through our children is definitely our responsibility. And why was this so heavy? Like, this seems like a simple concept, but it's like, I didn't really realize the heaviness of that, right? What happens to our kids and through them is our responsibility. We are responsible for protecting them. We are responsible for caring for them. God has entrusted us to care for them and to mold who they become. Hey guys, I hope that you are well. I hope that you had time to go listen to the last episode where we talked about finding grace in the messiness of motherhood. That episode was so important to lay as the foundation of this journey because this week we're going to be talking about the journey of self-discovery and the things that we may need to unlearn. So if we use the grace that we tapped into last week, this journey will also be helpful. All right. So we're going to start with unlearning some things. It's important for us to unlearn things in our journey of self-discovery because we don't know what we don't know. And we don't know the things that are just in us, right? Sometimes people say that and people have like this reaction. It's like, oh, I don't know why I do this. It's just in me. I don't know why I yell. It's just in me. I don't know why I need things to be neat this way because it's just in me, right? There are things that are quote unquote just in us. And then if we take this journey of self-discovery, we're going to kind of find out where those things came from. So let's unlearn some things. Why do we want to unlearn it? Because we don't want to teach these things to our children if they were not helpful to us, right? Or if they were unproductive for us. What happens to our children and through them is definitely our responsibility. It's such a precious gift that God has entrusted us to really care for them and rear and shape who they become. And part of that may seem like, oh my gosh, it's such a responsibility. I'm barely making it myself. I'm barely able to really focus on who I need to become and who I'm developing myself as. But that's why we talked about grace last week and how we need to build on that grace through this journey. But God has definitely entrusted us to care for them and mold who they become. Now I understand, like sometimes they go different ways and sometimes things don't always happen, the way that we intend for them to happen. But the core of that responsibility and the level of trust that God has given us to rear our children and to instill in them the things that are meaningful, it's on us. And that can be scary. That can be like another stressful thing and it seems like another thing to do, but I really think it's a gift in that he allows us to be a part of something so wonderful, right? And a part of that is through the lessons that we teach them. I know there are things that we teach our kids on purpose, like, hey, be kind to others, listen to your parents, follow the rules, pick up after yourself. These are things that we are consciously teaching our kids, potty training and how to eat your food and all these things. These are things we're like, okay, we have to teach you this, we have to teach you this, we have to teach you that. But what about the things that we don't realize that we're teaching our kids, right? What about the things that we're just doing and not realizing that they're watching or that they're intaking as a lesson? For example, it's like how we treat other people. We can tell them all day, hey, we should treat others with kindness. But if we are kind of losing it when someone gets our order wrong, what are we teaching them? Or if we are having a disagreement with our spouse, our partner, in front of them, and then if they see this disagreement and they never see it resolved, what are we teaching them? These are the things that we're teaching them either consciously or subconsciously. A lot of times we're just kind of in this mode of survival and going, and we don't realize that these little kids, these children, these growing teenagers are definitely taking notes of what's happening, and they're going to use it for the trajectory of their lives also. Like I said, we all learn from our environment. We are looking at the things that's happening around us. We're looking at the responses of people. And if we like the response that someone got for an action, then what that tells us is that we should probably do that action too, because we want to get this response. An example of this is like, I learned lessons about habits, relationships, money, and they always kind of showed up at different times. I didn't realize that these were things that I was being taught. Like I learned, food was a high commodity in my family. Like we love to go eat. We love to go to nice restaurants. We would go and you just don't worry about how much it costs because we like to buy food. Food was like top tier. So that was something that was innate in me. I never thought about how much food costs. Like I just paid for food. I didn't think about, oh, this dish is kind of expensive or things like that because it was taught to me that, you pay for food. So that was a lesson that I learned and I was like, cool, because I like to eat. But that was something that I learned from my environment, from my family. There were things about relationships that I didn't realize that I learned. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is how I realized that there were relationship patterns in my life that I needed to unlearn. These were things that I was learning from my environment, but I wasn't actively or consciously being taught it, right? I was just taking in my environment. I was taking in how people felt because they had these things, how people talked to the person they were in a relationship, how people handled this type of disagreement, what was actually happening and what was happening after that. This is how lessons are taught and kind of ingraded. And then we're like, oh, it's just in us, but it came from somewhere. So today we're going to talk about my journey of discovery and what I needed to unlearn in my relationship patterns. Honestly, I was married before I realized that my views on relationships were not the law. Like this was very concerning for me. This really just kind of knocked me off my feet because I was like, what I understood about relationships to me was like, this is how you respond. This is if somebody, if you feel disrespected, then you definitely were disrespected. So you need to either disrespect them back or you need to remove yourself. You know, win the argument. It's important to win the argument. Make sure that, you know, you get the last word type of thing. Like these were things that were in me. I was like, I was a winner. You wasn't going to out-talk me. And if I stopped talking, that means I didn't care anymore. And I was just done with the conversation. This is how I thought things were supposed to go. And while I was married and I wanted my marriage to work, I loved my husband very much. And it was just like, you know, I want this to work and he wanted this to work, but we were struggling. We were trying to figure out how to make this work because he had his own set of quote unquote laws that he believed to be true. And it was hard for us to come to the conclusion that, wait a minute, like our views on this and our understanding of this is not conducive to what we're wanting to build. It's not helpful for the way we want to proceed. And what made this even more difficult was we had our son right after we got married. So we were newly married, new parents, and we had these old laws, these old understandings that did not serve us and did not serve where we were trying to go. But I had to come to this realization and this admitting that I don't know how to do this. And that went against a lot of those lessons I was taught. Like, no, you know how to do anything. You can figure anything out. And, you know, this is not above you. And this is not something that you admit failure to. But I had to really deal with that for a minute and say, if I want this to work, I have to do something differently. Like I said, I learned about relationships from survivor's point of view. I was going about my relationship with my husband as if I was in survivor mode, as if I was being attacked, as if I was in danger. And I had to realize, like, wait, like, let me scan, let me see, am I in danger right now? Like, is this conversation a danger for me? Is there any physical harm? Is there any emotional abuse? Like, is this dangerous for me? And in that, I had to realize, no, I just feel offended because this is uncomfortable. This conversation is uncomfortable, but I'm not in danger, right? I'm not being degraded. I'm not being abused. None of that is happening. We're having a hard conversation is what's happening, and I don't like it. So to me, that felt like a danger. Like my red flags start going up, and I'm like, he's asking me a question, and I don't have an answer, and I don't know what to do next. So now I'm going into defense mode, and that looks like a fight. And it took a while for me to realize, like, hey, like, I'm safe with this person, and for him to realize I'm safe with her. Like, she's kind of crazy, but I'm still safe with her. Like, we gonna figure this out because the core of the other person does not mean me any harm. They're not trying to intentionally hurt me. What we're doing is we're trying to navigate this hard space without any skills or tools in doing so. We don't know how to do this, but this conversation, this hard conversation is happening, and we don't have tools to navigate it. So I had to realize how to do safe relationships. Like I said, we had given birth to our son, and I started to realize, like, you know, even though he was at an infant stage, he was watching these engagements. He was feeling the emotions that I was feeling. I was nursing him, even during pregnancy. Like, these things transfer to our children biologically. They transfer emotionally and mentally. And I didn't realize how much I was transferring to him. And then, you know, you would see him in certain environments and he would just like have a reaction. We're like, what's happening? And why is he screaming and nothing is there? Like, what are you screaming about? And it's like, no, this is his body reacting to or what he believes to be unsafe, even though he doesn't have the words or the language to express it. At babies, they cry because that's their way of communicating. So I started realizing like, hey, I'm really recreating this path, this cycle of relationships that's not conducive to what we're trying to create. And while that was a difficult process of discovery, where it was like, okay, I don't know how to do this. I feel guilty because I brought this man into my life, this man has come into my life, and I don't know how to create this vision of what we both thought was this marriage was going to be. Like, we don't know how to do this, and now we have to make a decision if we're both going to kind of let our guards down and try to learn it together, or if we're inadvertently going to give up. I had seen a lot of people give up. That was something that was very prevalent in my family. People were, for their own reasons of survival, were just not up to the fight long term. And I had to realize, like, marriage wasn't going to be this beautiful thing every day. It wasn't going to be this day-to-day rainbows and butterflies, and it wasn't going to be this thing unless we worked at it and unless we built what we were trying to see. We had to build it, and it took us a long time. We've been married 8 years now, and I feel like just in the last couple of years, we're actually at the place where we can breathe and know that we're on the same page. It took a long time, but there were things we both had to unlearn. So I had to realize that I didn't know how to have a healthy disagreement or how to withstand feeling offended. My lessons in life taught me that if you feel offended, then it's a non-negotiable, and you either fight or you leave, right? Because offense equals not being safe. So I had to unlearn how to talk to people in general. Even outside of my marriage, like, I could see where I would fight in a manner of words if you had a different overall viewpoint of me. Like, I wasn't able to withstand what I perceived as offense, because then I just didn't need to be around you, right? Then I just didn't need to have this conversation with you. And I didn't realize that that was a undeveloped muscle, so to say, on my end, that I needed to strengthen. There will be times where I have conversations with people, even in my professional life. I'm a therapist now. It's like, you're going to be in situations where people are saying things that you don't agree with, and you have to learn how to regulate yourself. You have to learn how to hold your peace and your sense of safety, and be able to respond in a way that's not defensive or offensive, and still engage in this conversation and try to reach a sense of understanding from the other person's point of view. Yeah, I needed to learn how to navigate these unrealistic expectations of people in relationships. I really had this thing where I expected people to either know how I was feeling, or I expected people to know by how I was acting that I really wasn't angry and I really wanted closeness, but my actions were saying, no, I don't want anything to do with you right now. And I expected people to understand this, and I expected people to kind of have this Morse code of behavior that I didn't even have for myself. So there were things that I would do. I was like, I'm free to speak my mind without consequences, but then I would have like this strong reaction if it was done to me, right? How hypocritical of me. I mean, I was so reactive, even though I wasn't physically fighting. I was in this emotional fight, and I didn't have the tools to teach me how to not be an opponent, but how to be a teammate with my spouse. this may not be your lesson, right? This was just a vulnerability part of my lesson and the thing that I needed to really work on and unlearn. But this may not be for you, right? This may not be the thing that you're struggling with. There may be something else in your life, the way you react to other things, or the way that you want to explore the world, or maybe you kind of are fearful or things like this is for you to discover. This is for you to kind of reflect on and see what are some of the things that you may need to unlearn. One, so you can become your best self, so you can become the highest version of yourself, and two, so that you're not subconsciously teaching it to your kids. Maybe it's the way you care for yourself or the way that you speak to your children. Maybe you want to have a closer relationship with your spouse or your parents or whoever. And maybe you just don't know how to let your guard down in a way that feels safe. Whatever this may be, I want you to explore that thing for just a bit. Here's how we're going to do it. I want you to first put that in your mind. Whatever it is you want to explore, I want you to write it down and describe it to the best of your ability. What does this look like in the most ideal version? Like, what would you expect this to look like if it was perfect? So for me, I wanted a relationship where I could have a hard conversation in a safe way and still know that we would be there when it was over. That was like the ideal version. That was my ideal thing. I wanted us to sit and have this conversation where nobody's being called out of their name, nobody's storming and leaving, nobody's throwing things, nobody's doing this. This is what I wanted. But I wanted us to be able to do that and still be there when it was over. So for you, I want you to write down, what does it look like for you? What is your ideal vision of the thing that you are thinking you may want to work on? The next thing we're going to do is you're going to write the description of what your reality currently is. How are you showing up now? What does it look like right now without anything being changed? How does that look at this moment? So the last thing you're going to do is you're going to compare them. You're going to compare your ideal version to your reality of now, and you're going to see and pinpoint the areas that need the most help and attention. So my guess is that these are areas that have lessons that may need to be unlearned, right? And that's okay. That's not your fault, and you're not at fault for what you didn't know. But now that we have this idea, now that we are pinpointing these things, it's okay to kind of take some time to work through them. Reach out to your therapist, join a community, and find a safe place of people that will support you on this journey, okay? I hope you have an amazing week this week, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye. That's all for today, and I hope that you're feeling inspired to navigate your shifts with grace and authenticity. But remember, you don't have to do this alone. Our growing community is here and ready to support you. You can find the link to that one in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, I want you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a mom who may just need a little support and encouragement. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. We are on Instagram and Facebook at Momship Mastery, and those links are also in the show notes. Before we go, here's my little reminder. You are an incredible mom, and you have the power to nurture your inner well-being and create meaningful connections and relationships. Embrace the journey, cherish the moments, and continue to thrive in your momship journey. Until next time.